Hey yo, it's Gluke, welcome back. Today, we're talking about how much you actually need to know to produce music. Let's go! So here we are back in Ableton. In order to answer this question, I'm going to break down our knowledge into 5 different levels of abilities within Ableton. And so, to really answer this question of how much you actually need to know to make music in Ableton, I feel like the question comes from the perspective of what is the minimum amount of knowledge that someone would need to be able to make what they want to make in Ableton. And I think to better answer that question, I'll show what different levels of knowledge can accomplish in Ableton. For level 1, if we're just starting out, you don't need to know anything. The only goal at this stage is to have the computer make noise that sounds like music. And so for level 1 here, let's say that our focus is just on making a song. Well, the most straightforward way to do that would be to go to Splice, find a pack with the genre that we're trying to make, and then find a drum loop, a bass loop, and a vocal. Here's the bass loop that I found. And here is the vocal I found.
In the middle of the night where you I just want you by my side.
And here is the drum loop that I found. So then the task really becomes put it into the DAW. So this is what level 1 sounds like altogether.
In the middle of the night where you I just want you by my side. I like that. Only you make me feel right. Come on, ride. Oh, the way you get me high.
So to answer the question of how much do you need to know to make music in a computer? Nothing. You really don't need to know anything. You really just need to have $7 a month. But obviously this isn't very satisfying. Also, maybe we don't want it to sound exactly like this. So now we're back to the question of how much do you need to know? Well, at level 2, this would be our basic grasp on understanding things like key signatures and rhythm and being just a bit more comfortable inside of Ableton. So this is what level 2 sounds like. And so here, instead of just using the loops that we had just right out of the box, here we've crafted a really basic drum groove. And then I took the loop that we had before and I put a filter on it, so that way we're only getting just the top end noise out of it. And I've layered that in, and now we have a full drum loop section. With the vocals, we still have not done anything with these yet. These are still pretty much identical to what we got from Splice. And with the bass loop, what I did was I started duplicating some of the notes so that way I could make my own groove. Now it still follows the same progression, but now we've at least changed it enough to where if someone heard that loop on Splice, they wouldn't immediately be able to tell that this is that loop. And so that's how much you need to know to understand this. It mainly comes down to comfort level. I could just have the bass line do this if I wanted. And I feel like that would work in a club setting if you just made a song that was like that. Let's say that we want to rely on more than just loops and actually start writing our own music. Well, that puts us at level 3. Our main focus is going to be composition. In the previous 2 levels, our main goal was to get the song to sound like a song. We weren't really aiming for anything other than just having it sound musical. And so with level 3, we're a bit deeper and we understand things like key signatures and how to write our own MIDIs, so that way we're not using loops at all. We'll still pull things from Splice like samples and vocals and whatnot, but our main focus here is going to be on composition and making sure that we're writing music that actually makes sense. So this is what level 3 sounds like. And so let's go through and see exactly what I did here. In the drum section, we still have our basic rhythm here and we're still using the drum loop, but we've added this percussion. So now we have a bit more of a unique movement going on in the drum section. The main difference between level 2 and level 3 is going to be that we've actually written our own bass line here. And I'm using something that I made in Operator ages ago. But if you're using presets at this level and actually writing the MIDIs yourself, that's how you know you're at level 3. At this level, we're still not too worried about processing or anything deeper than just really writing the music ourselves. And so this is what the bass line sounds like on its own. What we could do if we're at level 2 and we want to get to level 3 is we could just rewrite the bass line that we already had here, except into the MIDI here. And so we can see that side by side, the pattern that we drew from the splice loop and the pattern that we wrote ourselves is extremely similar. And that's totally fine. You can always use splice loops as inspiration and then just write it yourself. And that way you'll have more control over it if, say, this note doesn't feel right or you want to do something different at the end of each phrase. But again, the biggest difference between level 2 and 3 is that we're writing the music. And so here I wrote these 2 layers and I've already flattened them to audio, but this top layer is a piano. And this other layer is a really simple synth from Serum. And this is really adding more of a rhythm to the overall sound. Now, if we take them away, the songs can still exist as it is, but these just add that extra layer of pizzazz, we'll say, that help you really sculpt the sound that you're going for. So this is what the bass and the synth sound like together. And then with the vocal.
In the middle of the night where you hide, I just want you by my side. I like that.
And so then all together, we have what sounds like a full song. So just to wrap up level 3, our main focus is still on writing notes and stuff. We're not that focused on sound design or processing or anything like that, but we have a much clearer idea of how to go from silence to a song in the sense of all of the notes and stuff like that, which brings us to level 4. And level 4 is really where you start to branch away from just music theory and scales and key signatures and stuff, and really start to explore processing and sound design, and more so the fundamentals of production. Typically around this time in your production journey, you'll be really, really good at making one genre of music, but you might struggle with writing a different style of music. And so this is what level 4 sounds like. And so to start breaking down what's going on here, I pulled the kick out of our drums so that way I can process it separately. And with the drums, I've added a few more layers to it. And so obviously we have our main offbeat hat. We've got some accents here. And with this layer, what I did is I took the loop that we had before and then I split it by 16th notes. So that way it's only capturing all of the offbeat drum accents here. And that way I just loop it on the first beat and it gets kind of a tapey feel to it where the drums are just looping like that. Also too, I've added some fills here using just the standard 909 kit within Ableton. But these just add a little bit of extra flair at the end of each of these 2 bars here. Now with the vocals, what I've done is instead of just letting it run all the way through, I've cut it into this phrase so it goes in the middle, and then I'm having it say middle, and I've put some echo and reverb on it. So that way we're filling up the rest of this space, but the vocals are a lot less present throughout the entire piece.
In the middle, in the middle, I like that.
Nothing super complicated here. This just takes a bit more creativity than the previous levels. And at this point, you'll just have a better understanding of where things should loop and then where they should go. Now in the bass line, there's really not much that I changed here. The only difference is that I added a little fill at the end with a different synth. But the bass line here is pretty much the same as the past 3 levels. Where level 4 really starts to differentiate itself from level 3 is that we're creating much more of an atmosphere here for this bass line, so that way it's a more engaging song for the audience. So this is what it all sounds like together. And so to quickly run you through how I made all of these sounds, this is a reversed version of the piano that we had in the previous level. And then this is the exact same as it was before, just a little boop noise. So this stab was originally in G minor. So what I did was I repitched it and then I added some phaser, so it's not just really static. And then I did some crazy EQ work just to try to get it to sound weird, but this really isn't doing that much. And then I added reverb here to help this become more of an atmosphere piece. And then I also added this little melody tag at the end of the phrases, but this is how it sounds with the bass. So I wrote this melody and it kind of follows the movement of the bass. And then all together without the kick, this is what it sounds like. And so with level 4, to answer the question from the beginning of this video of how much do we need to know to make music, I would say that around level 4 is typically where most people will stop learning. And at this point in level 4, you've probably been doing it for a few years now, and you've figured out all of the different tricks to process all of the sounds that you're looking to use. You're not all that focused on writing every piece of music. You're only focused on writing the music that you want to write. And that brings us to level 5. We're not really learning about how to make music in the computer at this point because we already have a very, very good understanding of that. Really what we're doing now is we're just trying to experiment and see what else we can do within the computer to push ourselves even further. And so at this point, you kind of start to realize that genres aren't real. Like all music is just a kick, a snare, and the tempo changes. And you're able to pick up new things such as like a new plugin or a new device and learn it really quickly because it's all pretty much built on the same fundamental principles as all of the other devices that we've seen so far up to this point. And so the main focus at level 5 is just going to be expression. What do you want the song to truly sound like, as opposed to trying to write it correctly? So for me, this is what level 5 looks like, and this is just how I wanted to write it. I really enjoy writing breakbeats and more complex kick and snare rhythms than just house music. So this is what my level 5 sounds like.
In the middle of the night, I just want you. I just want you. In the middle of the night, I just want you by my side.
I'll break down what I'm doing here, but essentially the bass groove of this section all revolves around this dotted eighth pattern that the kick is playing. And the groove of all of these different rim shots that I've thrown together. But all of them meet on the fourth beat here. We're setting up the first 3 beats to be just one big crescendo into this last beat here. But the rhythm here, it does stay consistent. It just takes a bit longer than 2 beats to figure out. And then with the hats, all I did was have them on 16th notes, so that way we can hear the entire grid, and that helps sort of stabilize these more complex rhythms. Another way that I'm helping stabilize this rhythm is by using these vocal cuts here. And so she says night right on the first beat of the second measure, and that's where I made the vocal cut. And we're having it echo out, so it sounds like it's doing this. But those are all just the echo layers. And then if this is the call and this is the response here is to repeat this part of the phrase twice.
I just want you. I just want you.
And then we're just running that the entire time. So with all the drums and the kick, this is what it sounds like.
In the middle of the night, I just want you. I just want you.
And so I made some really simple noises here, but the rhythm in the bass is pretty much just following the kick and really accentuating the space that the vocals and the synths are taking up. For this sound, for the Fuzz 808, this one's really simple to make. It's just a sine wave, and you really don't need to have this one. It's pretty much just this. But it's a sine wave with some white noise, and then a little bit of distortion and a compressor with the gain turned up. Now this sound, the beef of this sound comes from using a filter and creating a really noisy waveform that gives the filter something to comb through. And so again, we're trying to accentuate that fourth beat where all of the snares line up too with this. So that way we can let these Fuzz 808s run for the first 3 beats, and then we go to a bow. And then we'll do it again and we'll go to a different sound. So in this case, because this song's in F major, I played an F, but within the patch, I'm also playing a major third 2 octaves above the sub. It makes this really nice and pretty bass sound when we do that properly. So altogether, this is what the bass group sounds like. Now, if I spent more time on this, I would probably add one more sound here, or maybe even cut it back this far and start to do more of a larger fill here. Now, in the synths, this is really where we're starting to create a soundscape for all of this other stuff to exist in. And so what I did here Oh my God, I can't even remember. Oh, I remember. So what I did to make this noise was I started in Serum and I used some detuned sine waves, and then I flattened them to audio and I had to manually cut them like this. And then I added some grain delays over them, and then I manually cut them again. And then I added some white noise, another auto pan just to really hone in the sound. And then I filtered out a lot of the frequencies, so this is really just more of a texture. I also automated the pan on the channel, so that way it goes from left to right and right to left every time. And then to help with the overall rhythm of the sound, again, I made this sound, which is really simple, but it's just a bit of fuzz and 2 sine waves that are detuned. No effects, no nothing. And then I added a hybrid reverb. I cranked the dry wet on it, so that way it doesn't sound really in our face. It sounds like it has some distance. And then for this sound, what I did is I took our simple beep layer from before and I rearranged the rhythm on it, so that way it starts to wrap around each of these turnaround points. So on the first beat and the third beat, we have notes on either side of it, and that way it kind of throws you into the next beat and keeps the rhythm and motion going. Yeah, in terms of the actual sound, I did an auto shift and pitched it up an octave, and then I did a gate to help shape it a bit better, and a little bit of white noise just to make it cut through the mix a bit more. And so I hope that this video starts to help answer the question of how much do you need to know? When it comes to writing music, there's really not a minimum amount that you need to know. It's really just comes down to effort. If you don't know anything, you can always just get loops online and put it together. But the more time and energy you spend learning about what it takes to make the sounds that you want is going to give you the power to be more precise with what you're making. And so let's listen to all 5 levels back to back, and the differences between each level will start to become obvious.
In the middle of the night where you hide, I just want you by my side. I like that. Only you make me feel right. Come on, ride. Oh, the way you get me high. In the middle of the night where you hide, I just want you by my side. I like that. Only you make me feel right. Come on, ride. Oh, the way you get me high.
So that's my long answer of how much do you need to know to make music on the computer. The short answer is nothing at all. And the long answer is as much as you want. But I hope that you at least found this video interesting and useful. I'll go ahead and put this project file on the Patreon, and I'll link that down below. But with that, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell so you know when I post new videos, and we'll see ya in the next one.